I want to show you some of the math tools that I've created on Mimio Studio. These math tools are manipulatives that the students can use on the whiteboard to show their thinking in front of the class or just on their own. I found that these are really interactive. The kids really enjoy them and they're really engaged by them. But another really great reason that these are so helpful is because I've designed them to look very similar to the types of tools and manipulatives that the SAGE test will give the students. And so it's actually a really good SAGE preparation to use all year round, to use some of these tools in front of the whole class so that they get the idea of how to drag and drop these things and use them to solve different kinds of problems. So the first tools that I want to show you are using place value blocks as manipulatives. There's four different pages of these, and they're all very similar, just giving you some options on how you want to organize your manipulatives. So the first one allows you to use thousands, hundreds, tens, and ones. And all you have to do to make these into manipulatives you can use and manipulate is to click and drag them into the workspace. And once you click and drag them into the workspace, then you can manipulate them, you can move them around, organize them however you want to. But I've also set them up so that you can decompose these into smaller pieces. So for example, the hundreds, you can decompose those into 10 tens. It's a little bit tricky to do so, but you can teach the students how to do this, or you can just help them to do it on your own. If you right click on an object and then you go to grouping and you ungroup it, that will automatically ungroup it from 100 into tens, and so then the students can just pull apart the tens and use those. So that's kind of helpful for you. The next slide is the same thing, but this time I've given you just the options of hundreds, tens, and ones if you don't want students confused by thousands. Again, the same as the first one, just rearranged a little bit so that you can do it in a different format, and again the same. The next tool I want to show you is a bar graph tool, where you can build your own bar graphs or have students build their own bar graphs up on the front board. I've left it very free so that you have to put in a lot of information. So you'll have to put in a scale, you'll have to put in axes and label your axes, a title, but the great thing about this is that you can just click and create the bar graph without having to move or change anything. So really quickly, if I wanted, for example, the blue, if I wanted it to go up to the second mark, I just click at the second mark and it will create a bar up to there. So I'll just create my different bars on the bar graph to show my bar graph growing. The one thing that you have to be careful about the way I've had to create this bar graph is that when you want to make the bar go away or change the bar, you have to first click the bar at the top of the bar again to make it disappear. So you click it and then you can change it from there. So always just make sure to click on the bar to get rid of it first and then make it disappear somewhere else. If I just click in the middle here, like on this red one, it doesn't do anything, or it doesn't appear to do anything. It really does. Actually, if I click at the top of this one, it actually created a bar underneath it. So you just have to be careful about clicking the very top of the bar when you want it to disappear and go away. Kind of an example is the next slide. An example of what I've used my bar graph for to show, and I changed it just slightly. The next one is making a pictograph. So this is really good for third grade. You can alter the labels here of the different tables to whatever you want them to be, but you can also click and drag a star into the space and then assign the star a certain amount of points and give that a scale. I've put in this blue box here, which is actually just creates a white rectangle, so that if you wanted it to just be a half a star, so that you can also have the students think about what would half of the star count as if it were a star and a half or 2 stars and a half. The next slide is one of my favorite tools. This is a great tool for using for area or for perimeter, lots of different applications you can use this for, but each of these squares is interactive. If you click on it, it turns black, so you can create your own shape very quickly and ask the students to find the area or find the perimeter of that shape. The next tool is fraction bars, and it just shows the fraction bars, but when you click on the fractions, so if I wanted to have the students compare 3/8 to 3/5, they could use this to model it. So 3/5 would be 1 to 3/5, and 3/8 would be 1 to 3/8, and so 3/8 is less than 3/5. The next two, the last two, I guess, slides are helpful for for multiplication and division, but you could use these for addition as well. One of the tools I give my kids in class to use when we talk about multiplication is an egg carton. Helps them to organize their groups better, and so I've kind of made a digital egg carton here. So if you wanted to have the students find out what 3 times 4 is, they could make 3 groups of 4 or 4 groups of 3. So they would use each of these squares as a group, and they would drag however many beans they wanted to at a time. So they could drag 1, 2, or 3 beans at a time. You go 3 beans in one, 3 beans in another one, 3 beans in another one, and 3 in the next. So 3 times 4, or 4 groups of 3, would be 3, 6, 9, 12. The last tool is I use more often for division, but it could also work for multiplication. Let's say you wanted to do the same type of a problem, but in this time you were telling the students that you were going to give them 12 beans, and they had to share between 3 different people. So how many beans does each person get? So 12 beans. So they could either choose all in ones, they could choose with 2s or 3s. So maybe we've got all the beans, 3, 6, 9, 12. And then we're going to share these with 3 people. So we have 3 different groups. We're going to divide these into 3 equal groups. So we're going to take 3 and put it to there, 3 to you, 3 to you. If the students have too many in a group and they can't split them up, all you have to do is right click on the object, do grouping, and ungroup them, so then you can pull them apart and share them equally into the different groups. So those are the math tools.